The social workers also suspected that they'd involved other children from the estate in their satanic ring. Families who knew Andrew and Beverly were targeted 3 months later at 7:30 in the morning on the 14th of June, 1990.
And we were just dragged and bundled out into a car, and we saw my mum being put into a police car.
I was scared when they got me in the car and Cheryl's asking where are you taking us, where we're going, what's going on with my mum, what's she done.
11-year-old Lisa and her two sisters, 6-year-old Catherine and 15-year-old Cheryl, had no idea why they'd been forced from their home.
It was like we were being kidnapped. It was like something that you see on the telly, as if we were, just being... They might as well have put blankets over our heads and just bundled us in, They just shoved us all in and set off.
13-year-old David and his 6-year-old sister Caroline were also taken from their home, and their 18-year-old brother was arrested for sexual abuse.
It was all crazy. I didn't understand any of it, and to be honest with you, it proper shit me up as well.
12 children were taken that morning. They were all interviewed by social workers.
They wanted to talk to us separately, and they took me in this big room, and then she just shut the door and started asking me loads of questions.
And they got a doll, naked doll, and they started pointing to, the genitalia of it, and they said, "Can you tell me in your own words what that is?" So I was like, "Yeah, dick." Then they turned it over, and what's that? Well, an arse. And you know what I mean? They'd say, "Well, do you know what it is on a girl?" And that was, well, yeah.
And little girls' parts. Do you know what we call little girls' parts? Vaginas. Vaginas, yes. And boys' parts they call the penis. Yeah. And what else do we call the boys' place? A lot of other things. A lot of other things, yeah.
15-year-old Cheryl was asked to describe the details of sexual intercourse.
What I'm trying to get at is what happens to his body when that happens. He feels good. Yeah. But could you tell? Could you tell if he'd had an orgasm apart from the noise?
I'd start holding the tighter and like kissing the more. Or going faster.
That's about what happens to his penis. So do you know how you could get a baby from making a love? Yeah.
After the intimate ones, they asked things like, "Have you ever been pregnant?" And I was so shocked. I just said no, not at all. And I really didn't understand why they'd asked that, but afterwards, and when we got home and had read in the papers and the paperwork that my dad had, it was things like they thought that babies were being born just for sacrifice.
Cheryl and the other children were frightened and bewildered by such talk. But where did such bizarre-sounding suggestions come from? If you look at the papers at the time, it gives you some idea. There was a steady stream of stories based on rumours of secret satanic abuse taking place across Britain. They involved lurid accounts of children being sexually abused, animals, even babies being sacrificed. Anyone working in child protection, including social workers, was left in no doubt that a new and terrible form of abuse was being perpetrated on innocent children. Conferences for social workers debated the threat posed by Satanism, and special training videos like this one arrived from America.
They would dress up perhaps as Mickey Mouse or Santa Claus and abuse the child.
Seem to get a lot of shark material from ritually abused children.
Taking parts of little babies and eating them.
Having adults participate in human and animal sacrifice.
You know, these ritually abused 4-year-olds want to play checkers.
British conferences were organised to discuss this new form of abuse. Articles appeared in social work journals, and the NSPCC advised their staff of the signs to look out for. They were called satanic indicators.
Nottinghamshire's Director of Social Services has released his long-awaited report on allegations...
Then in 1989, it appeared as if the first British case of ritual satanic abuse had been uncovered.
4 other sites in Nottingham that children are alleged to have suffered ritual abuse.
One child talked about when we're at school we pray to God, but when we're at home we pray to Satan.
It was later proved to have no link to devil worshipping, but by that time, the genie was out of the bottle. Every social worker was on the lookout for cases in their own backyard, and they started to spring up everywhere.
Ritualized abuse of children by devils.
A man who claimed he was possessed during an investigation in satanic ritual abuse.
These people in black robes, a baby was murdered, and then I was raped.
Being involved in ritual abuse as part of devil work.
Signed a parchment, actually selling my soul to Satan.
The existence of devil-worshipping societies in Britain.
Professor Elizabeth Newson, who was an independent witness in the Rochdale case, believed the social workers there had become swept up in the satanic panic.
They were right in the middle of the first flash, if you like, of conferences that originated in America. There was an unhealthy excitement about the latest thing in social work, and to find themselves suddenly faced with this in Rochdale was a very exciting thing for them.
The only physical evidence of satanic rituals discovered by the police and social services amounted to a cross made out of lollipop sticks and a ceremonial bowl used for holy water found in Andrew and Beverly's house. But it was the interviews with the children that social workers believed to be certain proof of abuse.
Do you think you have any secrets that are bad secrets of yours? No.
So I'm wondering really if there's anything you want to tell us that's upsetting you.
No, everything's okay. Stephen does not like them. They do horrid things.
Oh!
I'm wondering.
No!
Is that what you said to us?
Even though the children denied they'd been abused, social workers interpreted their comments as clear evidence that they'd been dragged into satanic rituals. There was a handy checklist at the time that the social workers could use to guide them. The satanic indicators were a widely circulated checklist of behaviours designed to indicate whether or not a child might be a victim of satanic abuse. And looking back on them now, certainly some of them seem legitimate cause for concern. A child being preoccupied with death or thinking they've got something foreign inside them like a bomb. But others seem more questionable, like a child being preoccupied with urine and faeces, being afraid of ghosts and monsters, not wanting to be left with babysitters. Surely many children behave like that. There were clear guidelines about interviewing suspected child victims of sexual abuse, but they were often ignored by the key social worker Susan Hammersley and the rest of the team, led by Jill France.
As well.
How did you get into your house then?
You go through a house,
Daniel's fantasies and dreams about ghosts were taken at face value as evidence that a ring of devil worshippers were abusing children, and the social workers believed that ghosts was Daniel's name for his abusers.
So, do you fly out of the window with the ghost? Or does you do? So do you do your spinning before you go out of the window then?
Some later interviews were videoed, but the crucial first interview, contrary to the guidelines, was not recorded, and no contemporaneous notes were taken. But the social worker Susan Hammersley claimed that Daniel had told her elaborate tales of ghosts who wore hoods, took him flying, gave him sweets and drinks, and that they'd even locked him in a cage. Another clip from this later interview with Daniel shows clearly how his words were misinterpreted.
Does the cross look like this? Or does it look like that? Or does it look like this? Which one is it?
That.
So is it in the middle that the line goes across? So it looks like that? So where does the ghost set fire to it? Does he pick it up and set fire to it? Or...
He picks it up and sets on the fire.
On the face of it, this seems like an innocent conversation about a young boy's fantasies. But the social workers later presented it in a more sinister light to the judge, saying it showed Daniel talking about how ghosts, or his abusers, set fire to inverted crosses. Another independent expert witness believed there was a much more ordinary explanation for 6-year-old Daniel's interest in ghosts.
I gather that they'd been reading about ghosts at school, and there'd been a haunting in the family that all the children in the neighbourhood knew about, such that they had to invite the priest to come and bless the house. And in addition, he'd been allowed to watch some regrettable and violent videos at home, and I think these things had added together in his mind and fed the disturbance that I was seeing.
But by now the social workers were encouraged in their belief that satanic abuse was taking place, and Daniel's sister, 11-year-old Julie, was interviewed. She was asked about her dreams. Again, despite the guidelines, the interview wasn't taped. But in later recorded interviews, she made it clear that nothing bad had happened to her.
If you did have any bad secrets, any things that somebody had really frightened you with, would you be able to tell anybody?
Yeah.
Who would you tell?
Yeah.
You tell me?
Yeah,
You haven't got any?
They sat us in this room and they asked us whether anything bad was happening at home. And I said no.
But this was ignored, and Julie's denials weren't mentioned in later official statements to the court. Instead, the social worker pressed on, this time asking Julie about her dreams.
I'd quite like you to draw me something out of one of your dreams.
I did say I dreamt of ghosts. I drew pictures of ghosts, had nightmares. But they twisted it, tried to make out that it was happening in our lives at home.
We say that it needs to know about your dreams so that it can try and make sure that they don't happen again.
How were the social workers interpreting Julie's dreams? Were they interpreting them as reality?
Yes, immediately. Immediately. Now, I thought, hang on a minute, that's a big step from she had had these things happen to her to she had to convey it by way of dreams. What does that mean?
Julie made it clear that what she described was only in a dream, that she then woke up from.
Then Mum was shaking me with the makeup and it was like that.
So was your mum in the dream?
No, I woke up, that was the end of the dream.
Oh, right. That was a horrible dream, wasn't it?
On another occasion, Julie makes clear again she's talking about a dream, not about reality.
Did he come to your bedroom in Asby Close? No. And did he give you the...
Despite repeated questioning, neither Julie nor Daniel accused anyone of abusing them.